Good morning, welcome to I Don't Know, but God Knows, and I am your host, Pati.
Hi, what's up, guys?
Today is an update video on what is going on. So as you can see by the introduction, I am not in my house back in Chicago. We are currently staying in Mexico. We're currently staying in my husband's grandparents' home. Let's rewind, let's go back so I can give you guys a full update of what happened. So as some of you might have seen the shorts that I uploaded, that was basically just the super quick version of what's going on. So yeah, we started a process, so that my husband can have permanent residency in the United States. He was not approved, but God has the final say, right? What happened was that we now have to submit another waiver, and what they have told us is that this waiver can take between 1 and 2 years to be approved. It's a waiting process, right? It's a waiting game from here on out. But obviously, meanwhile, my husband has to stay here in Mexico. We can travel, we can go back to the United States, but because our kids are on summer break already, we decided to stay here with my husband and accompany him at least for summer break. So now that we got all that cleared up, I want to talk about what God spoke to me about this trip, because for me this was completely out of my comfort. So I mean, that was beyond me, right? For me, all of this was impossible. For me, I was like, God, this is I surrendered it over to God, because I was like, I fear for my safety. I fear for, how we're going to do it. I fear for the appointments, right, that my husband has to go to. I don't know anything. For me, all of that is completely beyond me. So I'm like, God, you handle that all, right? Back when we got the appointment in March, I remember as soon as I saw, the email saying that the appointment was here, I mean, I was like, what? And so much excitement. I was excited more than anything. I was excited. That's the immediate, that was the immediate reaction in me. And so I called my husband, right? And I said it. And then when I said it, it was like, hold up, what? We got to go to Mexico. Hold up, wait. Like, my husband has to risk everything. It came in like a flood, right? It was like literally I was excited, and then that excited turned into so much worry. It turned into my heart feeling heavy, right? Like I wanted to cry as I was talking to my husband, because that excitement just like quickly, like reality sank in. It's like, wait, hold up, what we're about to do, right? Like, it's a huge risk, because this was my thinking, right? The whole waiting as we were going, as the date was approaching for the appointment. Obviously, every time that came up, and every time the feelings came up and my heart was feeling heavy, I would go to God, right? And I'd be like, God, like, I'm leaving this in your hands. Like, you got to do the impossible. You got to be with us there. You got to be with him in the cita, right? In the appointment, in the interview. Please, God. I would give it to God, and I would receive peace in return. But the thing was, I never had peace on the outcome, right? It was just like, I knew that the risk, that there was still the possibility, right? That there was still the possibility of God saying, not yet. You get me? I didn't have peace on that, but I had peace in the fact that pase lo que pase, God was going to be with us. That no matter what, God was not going to abandon us. God was not going to reject us. God was not going to leave us. God was not going to forsake us. God was going to be with us every single step of the way. And that we were going to be good because of that. We were not going to be good because of the outcome. We were going to be good because God got us. That's what I had peace on. I didn't have peace on the outcome. I had peace that God was truly for us, that God is really with us. And so back to when I received the call, and I called my husband, and then I hanged up with my husband, right? And I went to God, because then reality sank in. Like I said, when I received it, the first thing I did was run to my husband, and then reality sank in. I was like, hold up, we about to risk it all, essentially. And so I went to my secret place with God, right? And I have this little jar back home. I have this little jar back home that my sister-in-law gave me with Bible verses. And I was like, God, what are you saying about this? What should I know about this, this that we're about to do, this whole process that we're about to do? And so I take out one, and it was Psalm 126 verse 3. And the verse says, he has done great things for us, and we are glad. And I remember I put that in a place where we could always see it. I put it in English and in Spanish, and I told my husband, this is what God said about this. That God has done wonderful things for us, that we were going to be able to say that. We were going to be able to praise his name, right? To bring glory to his name. We were going to be able to say, God has done wonderful things for us, and we are glad. And so now I want to mention our actual trip to Juarez, right? That's where the consulado is, the consulate is it the Mexican? No, the United States consulate in Mexico? I don't know. But yeah, the interview was going to be there in Juarez. And so the way that we did it was, we traveled to El Paso, Texas. We traveled there. And then from there, we crossed the border by car. Somebody from Juarez picked us up by car and then crossed us over to Juarez. And I just want to mention how all throughout this whole process, God has been speaking to me. God has been reassuring me. God has been confirming. God has been strengthening. God has been embracing. God has been surrounding us. Like there isn't any moment where I said, oh my goodness, God is not here. God has left. Like, I can only say that God has truly been with us every single step of the way. When we were buying the tickets for El Paso, Texas, there were no other direct flights. I believe there was only two or three direct flights to El Paso, Texas. I think it was just two. It was between two. But point is, one, the price was good and it was a direct flight, but the seats were scattered, right? And obviously we're traveling with our two little ones, so we didn't want them to be, separate from us in the plane. And then the next one, the seats were, they were closed, but it was at nighttime. It was at nighttime, and it was like there was no other way. Like, it was like, we got to buy these tickets now, and we got to get these that are at nighttime. Why didn't we want at nighttime? Because like I said, we had to travel by car to cross the border, right? And it's scary, it's not safe. Let's say it's not safe. It's not safe to do that. But I was like, God, I mean, what I'm looking at right now is that there's only these tickets, and I gotta buy them now, right? And I was like, you're gonna have to be with us. So I bought them. I bought those tickets by faith, and God protected us. God protected that plane, right? God protected that car as we were going to our destination, as we got to the apartment that we were going to be staying in, right? God, the whole time that we were there in Juarez, God is I really felt like he really protected us, in that apartment. He really shielded us. He really protected us. I don't know, maybe Juarez isn't that dangerous to begin with. Maybe airplanes aren't, dangerous, and they really are safe because people travel on them constantly. Cars are safe, roads are safe. I don't know. All I know is that literally we're not, I just know that we're not granted anything, right? It's not just it's not guaranteed that just because you want to get from A to B that you're guaranteed that you're going to get there safely to, point B. That's why I just, I bring glory to God, and I'm like, God did that. God protected us. God got us from our home back in Chicago, God took us to Juarez and kept us safe all throughout. Now, let me tell you, when we got to the apartment, so it was literally like 12 in the morning, right? And all the windows were open in that house. But over here in Mexico, I don't know if you could see, or I don't think this window has it, but all the windows in the houses, they have, metal, so that you're safe, okay, nobody break in. But yeah, all the windows in that apartment were open, and I was like, close those windows. I do not want no open windows. Like, I'm scared. Like, I'm already scared to be here. Like, close those windows. And so my husband closed the windows, but you literally heard this noise, like this sucking noise, when the windows were closed. So I was already scared because it's 12 in the morning. We're here in an unknown place. Everybody has been telling me that Juarez is scary, so I'm just like, God, like, I'm scared. Like, get me out of here. I'm scared. You get me? Like, I don't want to be here. I want to be home. Like, I'm getting homesick, everything, and I've just been there, a couple minutes, right? And so we found out that the air conditioner in Mexico or in Juarez, in that apartment, it only works when the windows are open because it's like a vaporized, I don't know what they were saying, but basically the windows had to be open in order for the AC to work. So we figured that out, but then you still hear the noises of the dogs outside because the windows are open, right? You still hear cars passing by. I mean, and it literally sounds so clear, like people are literally, right there in your front, So I was just really scared, and I was just really nervous, and I was just like, God, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? This is not safe, and I'm scared, right? And because it was already 12 in the morning, my phone changed to the verse of the day changed, right? And the verse of the day, I want to say Isaiah 12 verse 2. I can't even remember right now what it says. I know it says something about salvation, but that God is with me. Like, do not be afraid. Like, it literally told me that the verse, right? Jesus literally told me those words. Do not be afraid. Like, he knew that I was scared. He knew that I was frightened. He knew what I was feeling in my heart. He knew that I was terrified, right? And just the fact that he knew, that just, it took weight off me, because I'm like, you already know. Like, you already know what I'm feeling right now. You already know that I'm really scared right now. You already know that I don't know anything. I don't know, and I'm scared, and I don't want to be here. But you know that. And that just brought me so much comfort. So then when it came down to the actual appointments, right? For those of you that don't know, and may want to know, or maybe it's because so many of us are in this process, and obviously it's not something we talk about commonly, but there is 4 appointments that you go to. So the first one is the fingerprints, and the second one is the checkup, the doctor visit, where they give you any shots that you may need. And then the third one is where they check your documents to make sure that you have everything for the upcoming interview. So then the following day, usually they give you the next appointment, which is the last appointment, and it is the interview itself, where you are either denied or approved for permanent residency in the United States. And you don't know how much I prayed to God every time that anxiety came up about the trip. I would pray to God, and I'm like, God, please let Lewis hear those words. Let Lewis hear the stamp. I don't even know. I imagine a stamp. It's not a stamp, but I imagine a stamp, a stamp saying like, you have been approved, right? I kept praying to God. I'm like, let God hear, bienvenido a los Estados Unidos, right? Like, felicidades. Like, I kept praying for that, for Lewis to hear those words. And now I want to mention this devotional that I bought. The devotional said, just think about, like, what's the worst thing that can happen. Just think about something that you don't want to happen, And for me, that was back in Chicago when I read it, and I was like, the worst thing that came to mind at that moment was that my husband would not be approved, right? That he would have to stay in Mexico. And I remember that I was crying my eyes out. I was like, God, don't let that happen. Please, Lord, don't let that happen. I was pleading, right? I was begging. I was crying on the floor. I was like, please, Lord, don't let that happen. And so I kept reading the devotional, right? I went to go get the devotional, but this is what it's called. It's called Fighting Words by Ellie Holcomb. And the question, really, she was telling a story. And this is what it says. She explained in detail what that would be. And then he said this, okay, if that happens, that worst case scenario that you just laid out, would God still love you? She replied, yes. And then he asked, would you still love God? She answered, yes. Then I can tell you for certain that you are going to be okay, because if you have the love of God to surround and support you, you can face anything. And that broke me right there, because I'm like, God's love isn't going anywhere. So regardless what happens, right? Regardless what happens with the interview, I'm still loved by God. You know, that doesn't change. The outcome on that isn't going to change God's heart for me, toward me. God is still going to love me, and I'm still going to love God, because where else would I go? God has the words of eternal life. Like, God, I have nowhere else to go but God. So now let me take you to the actual appointment. Or let me just mention how in Juarez, we were there, I don't know, maybe a week and a half, but we were there probably like 5 days before the actual interview, right? And I just want to share that it was just, we were just, I feel peaceful. We were just chilling. Like, I don't know, there was no nerves, there was no anxiety. Like, we were good. Like, me and my husband were good. I mean, you know, obviously the kids are good. They were good, thank God. You know, they didn't even know what's going on. I did explain to them, but you know, they don't worry like we worry. But no, I feel like God's peace really was with us. God really gave us peace on that we were gonna be good regardless, right? Like literally, you know, people would ask, you know, and how's Lewis, how's he's feeling, and I'm like we really are good. Like, you know, like there was no anxiety. That's what I'm trying to say. There was no worry about the cita. It was just about the appointment. Like, we were just, you know, like when we get there, we'll get there, but right now we're not there. Like, literally, why worry, right? It doesn't add anything. It doesn't add more days to your life. It, you know, there's no point in worrying. So yeah, all thanks to God, we had peace. So now we get to the actual interview. And again, for anyone that doesn't know and you want to know, so literally, I mean, there are long lines and people everywhere, right, in the consulate. So when it's getting close to their appointment time, for example, if your appointment is at 8 but you came at 7, you still can't go to that line, because it'll only take people that are at 7, you know, that have that appointment at 7. But okay, so my husband, it was his time to be in line, so we walk over there with him, right? So there's mosquitoes everywhere. Okay, and it was like, I don't know, it was like my little baby. Like, I had to leave my baby. I don't know, you get me? He's a grown man and he's strong and he got this, but you know, it was just like, oh, my little baby. Like, that's how I saw my husband. Like, oh, you know, like he has to go in there, you know, by himself. So, you know, I gave him a blessing and I told him I love him, and my heart was feeling heavy, right? And I went with the kids. We went to go get some snacks so that we could sit down, because you're going to be waiting for 2 to 3 hours. And literally, you just wait anywhere. Like, you find any place to sit or to stand, right? There's stairs. You could either wait there on the bridge, standing up in a bench, or, you know, you just find anywhere to wait for the person that went into the interview. So when I sat down with the kids, I was like, my heart was feeling so heavy, right? And I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to cry, and I just wanted to talk to God. And so I told them, I'm like, hey, we need to pray. We need to ask God, you know, for your papa to get his papers, right? Like, we, you know, And so it was just a quick prayer, right? It was just, you know, please God, please God, do the impossible. And yeah, it was this like, okay, you know, it's in God's hand. It's in God's hands. Like, I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything. I have no control. I have no power. I all I could do is give it to God, right? And so I was like, okay, it's in your hands, God. And so, you know, the whole time we're just walking around, going back and forth, you know, finding a place to sit over there. And then I bring him over here. Let's find a place to sit over here. And then we go back over there. And then I see him. I see my husband, right? And my husband, he went bien peinadito, you know, with his comb over. And you know, he got his little, you know, button up in his dress pants and all. And he's not smiling. And let me just say that I got to witness some people, some families, that they were rejoicing because they did get approved, right? And I was like, God, please, God, please let that be us. You know, let us celebrate like that, Lord, please. And so yeah, my husband came and there was no smile on his face, and I was like, what happened? And then he was like, que no. And I was like, what? You know, but I didn't have any details, and I'm like, maybe he's joking, you know, I'm hoping that he's joking. And then he's like, okay, you know, call the lady to come pick us up. Oh, because whoever you rent with, they usually take you to and from the appointments, which is really good. And okay, so I called her to come pick us up, and she's like, you know, what happened? You know, she wants to know too. And I was like, he's saying that he didn't get approved. And she's like, we'll figure it out. And I'm still, you know, like, come on, like, Louis, like, my husband, like, I'm still like, come on, tell me that it's not so. Tell me that you're joking. And so we get in the car, and, you know, he's starting to share. I don't want to ask any questions, right? I don't want to ask anything because I'm like, you know, if that's true that he didn't get approved, you know, I don't want to, yes, I want to know all the details, but it's also like, you know, this is heavy. So I'm not asking any questions, but, you know, the driver, she's asking questions, and he's all like, no, you know, they said that I need to do this, X, Y, and Z. And she was like, no, well, you send me a picture of it, and send a picture of it to the driver that picked us up from El Paso, right? So we get to the apartment, and then my husband says, like, this is the sheet that they gave me, right? And then I'm reading it, and I see those no estás aprobado, and I was like, what? And then I noticed that it has a date for 10 years from now, right? 2036. And I was like, and I'm panicking within, right? I'm literally talking to God, and I'm like, you know, is this like in Spanish it's called a castigo, but like a penalty, I don't know, something where for 10 years you have to stay in Mexico, right? I was like, no, please, God, don't, you know, not that, don't do that, you know.